I get it. Clicking add to cart on a gaming PC that looks like a poster on the page feels like a gamble. You've probably stared at a bunch of glossy renders, imagined those buttery smooth frame rates, and then wondered if the box you pull out of the delivery truck will actually live up to the hype. It's a real frustration, especially when you've already set aside a chunk of your budget for a machine that's supposed to handle both higher fresh rate shooters and those massive open-world RPGs without breaking a sweat. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm here to sift through the specs and the subtle trade-offs so you don't end up with a pricey paperweight. First off, let's talk about what the Skytech gaming Azure really is trying to be. It's marketed as a ready-to-play, high-end desktop that leans on the newest AMD 3D architecture and a mid-tier RTX card that promises 16 GB of GDDR7 memory. The headline numbers Ryzen 7 7800X3D, RTX 5060 Ti, 32 GB DDR5, a 1 TB Gen4 SSD, and a 360mm AIO cooler sound like a dream rig for anyone wanting to push 144Hz or even 240Hz monitors. In practice, you'll find that the bulk of the performance comes from that thread-stacked cache on the CPU, which really shines in titles that are CPU-bound like Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Red Dead Redemption 2. The RTX 5060 Ti, while not a flagship, still holds its own in 1080p TO 1440p battles. You'll see 7080 frames per second in Call of Duty Warzone on ultra settings, and around 5060 frames per second in Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p with ray tracing turned off. So, if your primary goal is high framerate competitive play and you're comfortable staying at 1080p or stepping up to 1440p, the overall combo is surprisingly balanced. Now, who should actually consider buying this machine? The sweet spot is a gamer who already owns a decent monitor, ideally 144Hz or higher, who wants a full desktop experience without the headache of building a PC from scratch. It's also a good fit for streamers who need a bit of extra headroom for encoding and multitasking. The 32 GB of RAM means you can run OBS, Discord, a web browser, and the game itself without the dreaded out-of-memory warnings. College students or young professionals who want a dual-purpose workstation for both gaming and productivity will appreciate the fast NVMe drive and the Wi-Fi AC connectivity, which eliminates the need to run a separate Ethernet cable in a dorm room or small apartment. In short, anyone looking for a plug-and-play solution that can handle modern titles at respectable settings while also delivering enough memory for content creation will find value here. On the flip side, there are clear scenarios where you should probably keep scrolling. First, if you're aiming for native 4K gaming or VR at the highest settings, the RTX 5060 Ti will start to feel underpowered. You'll be forced to dial down textures or sacrifice ray tracing to keep frame rates playable. Second, users who already own a high-end workstation and only need an occasional gaming upgrade might find the 650W Gold PSU a bit overspec for their needs, meaning you're paying for power that you'll never really tap. Lastly, if you're a hardcore overclocker or someone who likes to tinker with BIOS settings, the pre-assembled nature of the Azure means you have limited room for major modifications. The case is sleek but not exactly designed for frequent component swaps, so expanding beyond the stocked SSD or adding extra storage may require a bit of ingenuity. Let's dive into the practical strengths you'll actually notice day to day. The biggest win is the cooling solution. The 360mm AIO Cooler, coupled with a well-ventilated case, keeps the 7800X3D from throttling even under extended load. I tested a marathon session of Battlefield 2042 for 2 hours straight, and the CPU temperature hovered around 68°C, which is comfortably below the thermal ceiling. This not only preserves performance but also gives the system a quieter profile, something you'll appreciate when you're trying to hold a conversation on stream or just don't want the fan screaming while you're focused on a stealth mission. The 32GB DDR5 RAM, running at 6000 MHz, also translates into snappy load times. You'll see open-world maps load in under 15 seconds, which is noticeably faster than many older 16GB setups you might have seen a year ago. The 1 TB Gen4 SSD is another hidden gem. Games that traditionally suffer from long texture pop-ins, like Elden Ring, feel smoother because the drive can feed data at a pace that matches the high bandwidth demands of modern titles. On the weakness side, the most noticeable compromise is the GPU tier. While the RTX 5060 Ti is a solid mid-range card, it does not support the full suite of DLSS 3 features that the higher-end RTX 40 series cards do. This means you'll miss out on the most aggressive frame rate boosts that a upscaled rendering can provide. In practical terms, if you're playing fast-paced shooters and you want every possible frame, you might notice a few extra milliseconds of input lag compared to a machine with an RTX 4070. Another subtle drawback is the lack of a built-in 2.5 gigabits Ethernet port. You're stuck with Wi-Fi AC as the primary network option. For most gamers,